The astrological weather this week is a lot calmer following that very fiery and quite beautiful full moon in Aries on Sunday the 13th. For October 14th through the 20th, we're in between. That is to say, there's no particular moon phase this week due to the incompatible mashup of lunar cycles with our Gregorian calendar. So it's a week to catch up, and I thought, how about we step back and take a bigger view of where we are now in this last quarter of 2019, the pivotal year for all of us and for the world we live in. I'm Judith Royal, an archetypal astrologer who looks with great curiosity at the headlines and the players on our world stage, not because I like watching the news, which I don't, but because the collective consciousness, our collective consciousness, will show up in a projected form in the outer world. And often that's how I get to know what I'm thinking. And I hope it will enlighten all of us about what is stirring in our collective consciousness. So I was just delighted this week to find in the Apple Good News a story that just is a perfect compilation of so many of the astrological aspects I've been talking to you about. Last week, I gave you a heads up about the slippery communications ahead of us for the next 9 weeks, now 8 weeks, with Messenger Mercury, who is in Scorpio and has donned his Scotland Yard cloak. And I was saying we could think of communications now, inner and outer, as being facilitated by that winged Mercury messenger who is acting as our private detective. So the story is a story of Omer, O-M-E-R, I'm not sure I say that right. But anyway, she's a woman in Sudan who a few years ago agreed to help a friend and bride-to-be who was questioning whether or not she should follow through with the wedding because she had suspicions about the would-be groom. So anyway, they put his face on Facebook and right away they found a few hours after she posted the picture of the would-be groom, she got a response from a woman who said, "I'm his wife, and please delete the picture." And you may remember I mentioned that Mercury in Scorpio is going to unearth lies and deceptions, and that they may also involve not just criminal activity, but things to do with sexual activity in, what will we say, inappropriate liaisons. They went on to form a group of women who wanted to know what their men were up to, and they wanted to expose cheaters. In the end, they sort of accidentally exposed some corrupt political shenanigans in the Sudan. But of course, the piece that is unique now in this last quarter of 2019, we see the voice of women continuing to be quite prominent. Watch how this plays out in your personal life, and let me give you the parameters so that you can be aware of Messenger Mercury's shifts. So Mercury went into the sleuthy Scorpio waters on October 3rd, and he will be there until December the 9th. However, in October, on Halloween, very interesting timing, he will go retrograde which, is not about the planet going backwards, but rather from our perspective on Earth, the outer reaches of his elliptical orbit, he seems, when he's making that turn, to be standing still, giving us a laser focus from the last week of October through the first 3 weeks of November until November 20th, when he shifts back into forward gear, triggering probably some very uncomfortable revelations on the 20th and 21st, because it will be Mercury, Sun, and Mars in Scorpio for those 2 days. So with that painting of the big sky, let's come back to this week and the events ahead of us. So after Monday, October 14th, when we're going to definitely have some shocks and surprises to start the week, but we're under a Taurus moon, and that earthy grounding is going to bring us some sweet days of inspired action on Tuesday, and I would say a quietly transformational day on Wednesday. That is, if transformation can be quiet. I don't know if anyone hears a snake shedding its skin. Now, we move into a Gemini moon for Thursday and Friday, which means we're going from Taurus Earth to Gemini Air, and the key word for Gemini and for the mood of this moon is curiosity. Now, I don't think of the moon as curious. I think of her as calm and peaceful. So she's not particularly happy in the air sign of Gemini, which is all about ideas and multitasking. So moods could be very mercurial, changing from 1 hour to the next. Then Saturday and Sunday, we will be under a Cancer moon. That's the home sweet home. Actually, it's a weekend for really doing some cooking and some storing up of provisions for the coming winter. Then we're in transformational waters again with the moon in Cancer on Sunday, and a plethora of aspects in the big sky. They are a call to shift our perception from fear to love, and to be a love finder rather than a fault finder. And Sunday's going to give us a lot of energy, resonant energy, to do just that. So if you are a water sign, and this would apply to your sun or your moon, if you're a water sign, then you are in the Tao. You're feeling empowered because, of course, especially Cancer, because the 2.5 days a month that the moon is in the sign of your moon or your sun, those are your power days. And although the water sign Cancer is most prominent, Scorpio and Pisces will also find it very easy to make changes and to express the love in their hearts. Now, of course, that's a lot of water, and water and earth are a beautiful combination because earth holds water. So all of you earth signs, we've already had the kickoff with Taurus earth, and then Virgo and Capricorn earth are very prominent. And in fact, the earth and water combination is more productive than water and water. So your intuition has a little bit of a let's take action on that feeling. Now, for air and fire signs this week, Now is a perfect time to go back to all those notes and those to-do lists that you thought of when the moon was in Gemini, Wednesday and Thursday. And fire signs, that was a very combustible but creative combustion for you, because air and fire, of course, is combustion. And let's look at the elements, the compatibility with also the big outer planets, because air and fire, you are getting such an expansive new worldview that is for your personal goals, because Jupiter is still in fiery Sagittarius, where he's inspiring you to be a zealous crusader for what is the truth that you care about the most. In other words, what to you has the most meaning in terms of your own moral compass. Jupiter is using the tools of whistleblowing, and so you too can tap into that energy and get some things out into the open that, well, maybe you didn't even think it was important to talk about, before now. But now is the time to be as transparent as you can stand to be, because this year is a high watermark of 12 years of optimism, self-confidence, and taking advantage of opportunities that Jupiter, like Santa Claus, is laying at your feet. Don't take anything for granted. Now, there is an incompatibility between the air and fire signs with the earth and water signs, and that's being played out now between the resonance, the energy from Jupiter and the energy from Mercury. So Sagittarius and Scorpio. Sagittarius, you see, would just proclaim the truth. In my mind, I have the idea, it comes right out my mouth, because Sagittarius energy is the belief that truth is to be shared without filters. Now, Scorpio is entirely the opposite. Scorpio wants to hold on to the truth that they know, or the Scorpio energy comes across, until the whole picture of that detective, Mercury, has gone to the bottom line, fully understood, and then is shared. So Scorpio, water, looking at or under the underbelly, the dark sides, so-called, of things, and Jupiter's positive thinking optimism with really no thought of what Scorpio is most up to. So we have an incredible and often confusing mixed bag where the truth is said and laid out there, and in the next moment, it's challenged by a lie or a secret that Messenger Mercury has brought to the surface. This conflict is best seen on the world stage from Sheriff Saturn in Capricorn, right? And Pluto in there too, but mainly the sheriff is on the side of being very conservative, and Saturn is the energy of believing that the patriarchy should not be questioned, believing that people in authority should not be questioned, because there is the great need for security, that is a fixity of purpose, like the Rock of Gibraltar, so to speak, in the middle of inevitable changes, huge changes. So you can see this is the stuff that anxiety is made of, and where indecision can gain a foothold when facts appear to be so contradictory as they can seem right now. I want you to think of yourself then as a transcendental magician, that you can see this world of conflict and ego and yet look beyond it to the light beyond, where you are a transformational agent of change in your own life first, and therefore then extending it out into the world. Because the affirmation we want to work with, I think, is that we'll do the work gladly. We'll step up to the plate now. We are wide awake and our minds are far-reaching, because we know that what's happening now is the initiation of changes that are going to have a very long-lasting effect on the world. So we need some tools to bring this transformational energy into our day-to-day lives. Of course, astrology is my favorite because, you can just go outside and look at those beautiful stars and you feel transported, as well as astrology is the language of light and has the beautiful side effect of transcending ego. And in sacred geometry, astrology lines up with the tarot, because really the tarot is the sanctuary of transcendental art. And for the year 2019, we are vibrating with the number 12, the major arcana of the tarot, which happens to be the Hanged Man. Let me describe this energy and think about how this is manifesting in your personal life. The message of the Hanged Man is about how to break through a very stuck or a fixed perception that you might have attached to an attitude or belief that you've been running on, perhaps without any examination. So the Hangman encourages us to have a willingness to turn ourselves upside down in order to get a new perspective, a new perception, actually, of things that have you stuck. So the message is upside down. It's a symbol of surrender, of opening ourselves to the possibility that there are many things that we don't know, and even more, that we don't know what we don't know. And think what that simple act does for the judgments that the ego has taught us all the years of our life, and how insane it is to use those judgments to get to know the important people in our life. It's actually a study in how not to know them. Plus, the number 12 corresponds with the 12th house in the zodiac, the evolutionary growth that ends with the final lesson in the 12th house of Pisces. And that lesson is letting go of the past. The 12th house is often called the burial grounds, and it's where we've hidden our wounds and denied our sadness. Yet it's also the place where the dead and rotting vegetation of winter is fertilizing the soil in preparation for the spring. So here we are preparing for our own resurrection, our own new beginning. We take a deep breath of life now. And as Alan Cohen would say, the world would have you agree with its dismal dream of limitations, but the light would have you soar like an eagle of your sacred visions. Hang on to those, because in the crucial final hours before the dawn, we exchange perception for vision. And it is in this space that we can claim the gift of prophecy, because the past is buried. We've let it go. The new is not yet formed. And this slice out of time and space, when we are in between two timelines, we find ourselves in the still and the quiet present moment, the only place we can change anything. Thanks for listening. You can always get in touch with me. Just email judith@judithroyal.com. I love to hear from you, and I'll be back next week. Bye for now.